All right, so we're back again. All right, now, so where were we? I had lost my earphones. Couldn't talk properly with the laptop. All right, so we're back. Now, what I was talking about was that, you know, going back to the tablet. Uh, let's see. Let's discuss on the whiteboard. Okay. Okay. Now, what I need to do is I need to perform a share before we can do that properly. Okay. So let's do that. All right. Here we are. And what I was trying to say is that sometimes the idea is that, you are given some sort of vibration. And in fact, the vibration is actually a complex wave um, if represented in time. And that the whole idea is that sometimes you need a whole bunch of different types of sine waves combined together to try to approximate it. Okay. And what I was about to do is I was about to show you say, let's see what what such wave would look like under an oscilloscope. Okay. And so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to switch my tablet to oscilloscope mode. Okay. Let's do all these things. And then what I'm going to do is switch to the oscilloscope. Okay. And then so what you can see is that my voice is actually being examined on the tablet, not here. And this is what my voice looks like under the oscilloscope. Okay. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn on my phone a tone generator. Okay. The tone generator is, you can find it for yourself on the various apps sourcing websites. I use an Android, and my phone is so I use the Android store. So let's turn on for about 900 hertz. So what you're seeing here is the sound as generated by my phone. Okay. So let's try for 300 hertz. Unfortunately, you know what? Let's try the different. Oops, sorry. What I'm going to do, there is another scope available that does a better job. Hmm. Okay, we're going to skip this one. Doesn't do a very good job of whatever I wanted to do. And we'll go back to this one here. It's, here we go. Okay. Now, what I'm doing is I'm changing the frequency. And it turns out some frequencies come out better than others. That turns out to be an artifact of my phone's speaker. So you can see loud here. Now, the whole idea this is not, hold on a minute. I didn't mean to do that. This is what I want to see. This is better for us. Oh, no, it's not. Let's get rid of this thing. It's not helping at all. Huh, this is okay. What apparently what the app is doing is trying to generate a tone that approximates a sine wave. It's not a perfect sine wave. Okay. So this is what the sound actually looks like in time. Horizontal is time. Vertical is loudness, if you will. Not loudness as in the how the ear hears it, but loudness as in, of course, what comes out of the speaker that at instant. Okay, I'm going to turn this off. Okay. And what I'm going to do now is that what I want to illustrate is this. It turns out that there's a technique. Now, I'm going to stop sharing because what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to the tablet, to the whiteboard. Okay. And we're going to reshare it. It's like this. It turns out that there's a way to look at this, at any type of wave, audio wave, electromagnetic wave, and so on. And imagine that it looked like this. Okay. And so the question is, if we wanted to create that wave, what we do is this. We add a little bit of a sine wave of one type. We add another sine of another one. And then another one. And so on. We keep adding them. It turns out this is an infinite series. Okay. Now, obviously, I'm not going to teach you the math behind this. It suffices to know that it turns out that this has already been solved. And you actually don't even really have to know how that works, how the math works, how is it that we get this? How do we determine A? How do we determine W? We go omega 1 and 2 and 3, but most important, how to determine each of these A's. How do you determine them? Okay. Obviously, I'm not going to answer that question, but this is not what's important. Is that there are programs that are really simple for you to use to actually do that for you. And this is information is used so that you could try to, for anybody to try to figure out things like, well, how does your living room perform for a type for your speaker system and your radio system and your playback system and whatnot. How does it perform? And you can actually do that kind of analysis all on your own. It turns out you have only to download a particular application. And one of those applications, there are lots of them on there are lots of applications available on the app stores for doing this. Now, I'm going to get rid of some of these apps. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you one that I happen to like. This one is called Spectroid. Okay. Yeah, let's see where we can find it on the App Store. Whoops, sorry. Yeah. App Store, Spectroid. You don't have to do it. And this is obviously, I'm not going to test you on this. I'm not going to ask you to learn it. I'm just going to show it to you because some people are interested, some people are not. That's all. Here it is. Okay. This is what it's called, Spectroid. And I don't know why it always says beta, but it always has decent reviews. 4.6 stars. Doesn't make any difference. Let's see what we can do with it. Okay. So once we learn what we can do with it, okay, we can put it to good use. Here I have started it. Okay. Now, in this particular case, it's listening to the microphone on the tablet itself. So what you're seeing is kind of a representation of the sound in my room, in my office. So, for example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start up that tone generator again. That was so absolutely annoying. Let's do it again. Okay. What you see, these spikes. This is 899 hertz, 1,800 hertz, 2,700 hertz. Here, here, and here. What this is doing, the programs for figuring out what A1 is and A2 is and A3 is. This is called a Fourier transform. And what it does is it takes a wave, it takes a signal, and asks the question, how much of the wave of this frequency and that frequency and that frequency is inside? How many of those waves do we have to combine to make that particular sound? And so it tells us something about its content. Okay. So that 899 hertz that you saw, or 900 hertz, well, that tells us that was the frequency we're getting. One of the frequencies. it turns out you can do that with an awful lot of things. So let's switch out to, for example, back to this, okay? And I am now showing you a bell, the bell that I had before. During the break, I went over to Chata and I got a fork. I'm going to use this to hit the bell. You see those lines? All those lines are at frequencies that make up the sound of the ringing of the bell. So you can see the bell is not even making us a note that's pure. It takes several different notes to make it. Now, for the same reason, you can also do it to this recorder. Remember I had this recorder in the previous video? Oh, by the way, what do you call this in Turkish? It's a blockflute, okay? So I'm going to take this blockflute. I'm going to cover up all the holes, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to blow this note. I have no idea if I'm sure there's some experts among you that know a lot about block flutes, but certainly not me. But when I do this, sorry, we need to cover up all the holes just properly. All right, that's the lowest fundamental note that I can make on the block flute. Okay, so with that fundamental note, okay, it turns out that note is actually a whole bunch of sine waves to make that note. Okay, now, by the way, switching back to this thing, the program that what these programs do underneath, they do what they call a fast Fourier transform. Just so you can impress if you happen to meet up with an engineer. So you can, anyways, so it does a fast Fourier transform, and that fast Fourier transform tells you what those amplitudes are: A1, A2, A3, and A4. Now, why I mention I'm getting that is because most complex oscillations are not pure tones. They're often a combination of a bunch of tones all together. And they don't actually make, while they make, to our ears, we can identify, say, the note that it's making. Any of you, by the way, that have perfect pitch or absolute pitch, here's the terms if you don't know it. So some of you, I know some of you have played instruments, and you probably interacted one time or other with somebody that had so-called perfect pitch, or even better, absolute pitch. These are people who seem to hear notes for what they are. They can identify, oh, that's a C4, and that's a C3, and that's a D sharp, a deep D3 sharp, or something of that nature. You get the idea. They know which pitches they are, and they can hear them distinctly and individually. I think who was this guy who wrote, I don't think he wrote it, I think but he certainly made it very popular. Rocket Man, a very famous musician, keyboardist, pianist. And anyways, he has, I believe, absolute pitch. correct me on that sometime. But anyways, so and some yellow brick road, and a large number of other very widely respected standards, box standards. All right. So perfect. So absolute. If you have absolute pitch, you can hear notes. But the problem is, what is your action? What makes a sound different from one another? So let's suppose I get an A220. No, an A440. Okay. Let's do A440 on my phone. Okay. So let's sound on. Oops. Hold on a minute. What I'm going to try to do is dial in the 440 hertz. Okay. So now it's 440 hertz. Whoops, I disturbed it. Huh, that's fine. So you can hear 440 hertz. That is A440. Interesting enough. That's or it says so that's the note A of a certain type. Now, it's not any A that you probably heard from a musical instrument, because musical instruments all produce different types of A's. Compare the difference between a, what do you call it again? Just give me a moment. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back, find YouTube, okay? Someplace among my and so YouTube, and there are different timbers. So, like for example, let's take this. Let's see if we can find a really. What I'm looking for is a very short duration image thing. Okay, this is 2 minutes. Let me switch to here, and I share it with you. Okay, here you go. And let's whip this up. So, nylon guitar or acoustic guitar, a sitar, a viola. Anyways, I believe that's enough. Anyways, all of these instruments, the same note on each of the instruments, and yet they all sound different. What you're looking at here is a way to see what sounds of different frequencies, what they're and how much of each of those frequencies are involved in making that sound. So it's color coded to try to tell you about, okay, so there may be that sound, but it's not very loud. You know, they have different loudnesses over time. So, for example, in this particular case, this is all very loud. This is, of course, very soft. There's all these other characteristics about it. So, different instruments can all play the same note, but they all have different frequency components inside. That's what the that app does. The one that I showed you. Now, let's go back to the bell. Okay, let's get rid of this because we don't need this anymore. And stop share. So then what I can go back is listen to the bell again on the, and with this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up this again, and I'm going to strike the bell a bit differently this time. Okay. Now, all right, take a look. Hold on a minute. There's something. Okay. What I'm going to do is this. Now look. You see, that's the spikes in there are what you're hearing. On top of the bell, I have a magnet. Actually, I didn't. I just store the magnet on the bell. The bell is very magnetic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it onto the side of the bell, and I'm going to change the characteristics of the bell just by putting a bit of extra mass there. Turns out a magnet is useful here. So let's ring it one more time and see how it's different. You can hear it. It's not the same. Take the magnet off. It's different. Put the magnet on. It behaves differently. Or you can even hear the warble inside there. Now, let me show you one more thing. Okay. This is going to be, I know, long video, but I want to show you one more thing. Okay. And that is, let's see if I can do it just right. Okay. Now, I'm going to use my phone and I'm going to put on PA tone. Okay. I'm going to use 900 hertz. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to do the same, use the same app on the tablet. Let's see if this works. Here it is. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it at 10 hertz, 910 hertz. If I can get it to 910, there we go. Anyways, that's fine. All right, 909.7. So that's fine. Now turn it on. Okay. And I'm going to turn on the other one. Now that was pretty annoying. But what I was trying to illustrate there, if you can hear it, what you should be hearing is that you can hear this warble sound. What you're hearing is this. Let me draw it out for you. Okay. What you're hearing, let's draw our timeline here. What you're hearing is the sound doing this. So what happens is if you take two sounds, sine omega 1 omega t plus sine omega 1, the same sound, plus just a little bit different t, okay? All I'm doing is this is two sines. They're pretty almost identical, except I'm adding just a little bit of extra. What happens is you end up with two sounds. You can hear the frequency 1, and you can hear the frequency 2, kind of, but you also hear F2 minus F1 together. So you're hearing what they call a beat frequency. So you can hear these two beats together, or I should say, and first, it turns out that you can also hear one more thing. You can hear F2 plus F1. It turns out you can hear all these extra components just because you added two different sounds, each a sine wave, each of pretty much this nearly identical frequencies, but not exactly identical. So when they are identical, they sound the same. When they're not nearly identical, but different, you hear kind of a warbling sound as if it's going up and down, up and down. So you should be able to hear that. Try it. It doesn't take long. You can do it exactly the same thing for yourself. You can do this on your friend. PA, put the same app on there. Have one guy put it to about 1,000 hertz. Have another guy 1,002 hertz or 998 hertz. And you go woo, 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 woo sound. This is called a beat. Okay. Two sounds are said to be two frequencies. Two sounds are said to beat against one another. Now, it turns out that this is a technique, in fact, that musicians have long used to tune their instruments. Of course, nowadays we have electronic techniques. One of the reasons why we have, the oboe, for example, in an orchestra would go first is that they would, that would be the reference against what all the others, musicians had to calibrate, adjust to in their instruments. Okay. All right. So I have for you another video. Okay. Let's stop share and let me locate that video. And then what we're going to do. Sounds so, whoa, no. Okay. I don't need this timbre anymore. And aha. We still need resonance because I still want to talk more about resonance because I have a pet peeve. And in a moment, we're going to be talking about traveling waves. And I want to talk about something else. Hold on a minute, because I'm trying to get there. Resonance, I don't need that anymore. Okay. I was trying to write something. Nope, not this one, obviously. Aha, no. Use the opportunity to kill off a few. This is what I wanted to see. Got it. I found it. Now, I found this through a web search, and it brought me to Wikimedia Commons. Not Wikipedia, but under Wikipedia, there's a database of a whole bunch of media, images, sound recordings, videos, and GIFs, and so on. And I found this one. So let's share this, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay. Now, what you see here, I hope you can see it very well. Okay. What is this? What you see here is this is the fretboard of a violin. What you see here is a violin bow. This is, or the bow, and this is, of course, the bow hanger, or whatever it's called. Some of you will know better than I. So a musician is holding the bow and dragging it. This is done in, of course, slow motion. So it slows down what's going on. And if you look, you see the string, one of the strings on the violin, and it is being excited. It is being driven. It is being made to vibrate. Okay. And while it looks like it is producing something that's going up and down rhythmically, in fact, it is rhythmic because it's repeating over and over and over again the same exact way. The musician is doing a fantastic job. So, but the thing is, what you see is the sound going up and down this string. And in fact, what we should expect is that we shouldn't expect a pure tone. You're going to hear a composite of tones out of this. Another example is I found in this. This was interesting. Physics journal. I don't know what this is, but I'm looking for where's the video or GIF? Jeez, where is it? Where'd it go? I didn't see it. All right. Motion of harm. Okay. All right. Well, let's see if we can get the copy image address and do this. There we go. Perhaps you can see this. Okay. And what you see is somebody is plucking one. This is a steel string on a guitar. Okay. I don't know if you down over here, it looks like they're plucking two strings at once. This is probably the lowest or the thickest of string on the instrument. And what you can see is it is vibrating. And in fact, I bet this is not perfectly sinusoidal, which is probably just as well because we don't want the string to be this. Now, the thing I want to point out to you is that, well, you know what? Not all the sound comes directly from the string. In fact, some of the sound, let's get a picture of a guitar. I just want a guitar. I don't care about the rest of it. And what I want to do is I want to see, look, you pluck the string here, the whole string makes a bunch of sound. Some of the sound comes out into you, the listener, and some of it goes back into the guitar's body. And the body, of course, is reacting towards the sound. And that is in turn making sound that may not be entirely the same thing as what the string is, but nonetheless adding to the total sound that you hear as the listener. Whether you're the musician playing or whether you're the part of the audience, it's not relevant, but it is part of the the sound that's coming out. Okay, now we're going to hold that thought for a little bit because I do want to go on to something else. Okay, all right, let's get rid of that because I don't need this and stop share. And now we want to talk a little bit about mechanical waves. Okay, now it turns out that waves, when they travel down the string, okay. Now you'll see a little bit of my notes in here. I had started to write out the notes here. Oh, no, you can't see because I haven't shared it. Let's do the share. And then you can see it properly. All right, so here we go. You can see here, okay, that this is a property of wave propagation moving down on a string. Now, what we call a string, of course, is something that's really much longer than it is wide. A string could be a rope, by the way. It can be a cable, the size of the cable that's used to hold up a bridge, for example. Or it can be as thin as one's hair, or even a string that's used to catch fish, fishing line. Messina, as you call it in tel messina, as you say in Turkish. Now, how fast a wave propagates down through there is actually based upon some properties of it. Okay, let me run by it one at a time. But first one let me do is copy this equation down onto the notes into the white pad. Okay, so oops, because once again, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the whiteboard again. Okay, this is the same equation. Okay, now this is not again. I'm trying to figure out why it is behaving in this way, but all right, that's just fine. This is what they call wave velocity. This is known as the tension. And that is in newtons. And this will be, of course, in meters per second. And this is the density. Now, notice there is no width factor. There's no width or diameter. Okay, nothing about that. There is only this, what is called the density per length or unit length. So whatever that would happen to be, kilograms per meter or whatever, however you compute this thing. So what it means is this. So if you take a string and you fix it and you pull on it in such a way, like a force, then what will happen is that a wave will propagate along that wave thing proportional to it's the square root of the tension, whatever, and inversely proportional to the density. What does this mean for in practical terms? It means tighter something is, the faster that the wave can move through it. but also has other information, is that it also has bearing about how well the material will do many other things, like reflect sound, how it'll pass sound, how it'll change the characteristic of the sound, and so on and so forth. But these are information that's beyond the class. If you want to learn about it, there's a whole books on this. And there's plenty and plenty of reading that can be done without having to go into a lot of mathematics for this. But the whole idea is this, that you pull on something, you make it taut. Now, here's something that would be of interest to you. Okay, where would you apply that directly? Okay, let's have a look at a guitar again. Okay. Okay. You'll see this. Wait a minute. You know what? Forget this. You'll see this in the candidate quiz questions. So let's have a look at that. Those quiz questions real quick. If I can find it. Should be around here someplace. That's it. Okay, I need to stop sharing so that I can look for it. Oh, it was right here in the first place. Okay, now we can share it. Sorry about that. I had it already up. I just didn't realize it. Okay, now here's some problems on beats. Here's a guitar. This is what I'm looking for. This guy here. You'll get this inside of the candidate quiz question, so don't worry about it. It's already, I'll just have to copy it over and give you a. This is, I'm looking down at the guitar, okay? And this is an electric guitar. This has, by the way, there's a lot more physics to actually learn about the electric guitar, but we'll leave it at that. Namely, one of my favorite places is the pickup. You can barely see it, but it's there right at that place here. Anyway, look at the strings. There's some interesting things that are going on here. First of all, let's define something. Okay. This, let's zoom in on this. Okay, it should zoom in just fine. There we go. This is the one of the edges of the guitar right there, this big, thick, white thing. Here's another edge of the guitar. Take a look. We go from this string to this string, to this string, to this string, to this string, to this string. Notice something about this. They're getting thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner. What does that mean for the guitar? Obviously. Well, if you've been anywhere listening to a guitar, in the last billion years, you know that, of course, this is the one that sounds off the lowest notes, while these are among the highest notes. If you strike and make this thing, and those in between. Okay. So what does it mean for the diameter of the string? Well, that means, let's say that this from here to here, 1, 2, 3, just this. Let's say this is the length, whatever that length is. I don't know, but it's important. How much of material is there? Okay, fine. You got it inside your head. How much material is in this one? We're between here and there. And how much material is here? But let's jump over here. How much material is here? So what does it mean for the density per length of this string compared to the density of in material of whatever these are, steel, I guess. Are they all steel? I do not know. But whatever these strings are composed of. Are they also, is the density here same as this per length? Just one more thing. One other factor that determines how fast waves can go up and down the stream happens to be the tension. So what determines the tension inside this? So it turns out, let's zoom out because I need to look at this guy here. This is a Gibson, by the way. If you can't read it, this is a Gibson standard, Les Paul standard guitar made by Gibson. Okay. So here is one end of the string. These are the pickups here. And then here, this is the fretboard. And then here is where the strings are tied here. What do you think these are for? So if you know anything about guitars, and this doesn't take much, know that sometimes the musicians are twisting these things to try to get these to try to increase or decrease the force on the string, the tension. That force, of course, this tension affects, of course, the velocity of propagation on that string. Okay, but here's the thing. Velocity of propagation. What does that have to do with the sound of the guitar? Obviously, the sound of the guitar also affects this also affects the notes that can be played, high and low notes. Also affects, of course, the frequencies of that those notes are corresponded to. All right. Now, one more thing that I want to mention is a thing called the Chiladi plates. Now, once upon a time, I thought they weren't very useful for teaching about, and they were interesting by themselves. And then a few years ago, I found a gentleman on YouTube under the channel, what's it called again? Yeah, I should know. Let me look them up instead of bringing it out of my head. If I could just find it. All right. No, not this one. Tech ingredients. Okay. Let me show you this guy briefly. And you can have a look at it yourself. Well, why was I interested in this guy? Is because I have a deep interest in making speakers and how to make speakers. And I found him because he was interested in using what they call speaker drivers to construct what they call flat panel speakers. It's something we don't often see here, but it does exist. I've known about them since I was an undergraduate. I had just graduated and we had a party, the department, and I was, and I can't remember having a conversation with a guy, and we were talking about speakers because we were both interested in things. And he mentioned this type of a special type of speaker driver. What you did is you stuck it to the window, and the window became the speaker. I thought that was pretty cool. I thought, why not? I built, and fast forward a few decades, and I thought to myself, hey, why not build one for myself? it's about time to these. So I got interested and I found this guy on YouTube. Now, I eventually found him on this particular video. Okay. Fantastic do-it-yourself speakers for less than $30. Well, that broke me up. Well, in the video, what he does here, hold on a minute, where are we in this video? This is 1749, that's fine. All right, let's fast forward. And what he's doing, let's let it spool up and so he can get, this thing is a speaker, okay? He built this out of a piece of plywood, actually, maybe black. Let's see if we could find another one. Sorry. What I'm looking for is this. Why is it so dark in there? I have no idea.
Will work with polystyrene. You will.
All right, yeah. So he built these speakers and he used a really cheap driver that doesn't cost very much to make it work. And he made some pretty good speakers, so he says. Okay. Now, as I was watching this video, he was explaining a problem with using drivers on exciters, audio drivers on plywood. Okay, so he introduced this thing called he didn't introduce it, but he introduced his thinking via Chladni plates.
Particulate matter. Usually, what they do is they use anodized plates.
So underneath, he has a speaker driver connected to this plate. I have no idea what it is, probably. And he's sprinkling sugar on sugar. Okay. Sometimes he says sometimes they use sand, but he used sugar. Okay.
Most
so watch this.
At the places where the plate vibrates. Now I'm going to turn this on, and you can start to see some of the particles vibrating. As I begin to ramp this up in frequency, you'll find there are certain frequencies where the plate resonates. The sound becomes much louder, and you'll see patterns begin to form on the plate. Between resonance peaks for this particular size and stiffness plate, sand doesn't move.
Now, the resonance peaks are these clear areas here. You see where it's dark? It turns out the sand moved away from there. These things were unstable. The sand just couldn't stay there. And here, where the sand, not sand in this case, sugar, where the sugar has accumulated, well, the plate is not moving very much. So what it means is it's making the plate move here, 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 9 points, okay, at this frequency. Now watch
when it reaches enough.
Now watch what happens. He's going to increase the frequency and he's going to change the pattern.
Another resonance peak, you can see that it moves substantially and forms different types of patterns. As I continue to ramp up, different patterns.
So as different frequencies, you get different patterns. So it vibrates differently. What he's arguing in the end is this, that because of the way the board is reacting to different frequency sounds, the sound that comes out will not be uniform across all the different frequencies that you might be listening to in your music or whatever that you happen to be listening to. So it's not going to be uniform. It's going to sound great for certain frequencies, but it's going to sound terrible for other frequencies. But music, for example, is just not like that. There's a whole bunch of frequencies mixed in everywhere. So he uses this as an argument to say, putting the driver, here's what the driver looks like, by the way. Let's go backwards a little bit. Let me see if I can find what the driver is. It should be a fairly simple thing. Ah, this is it right here. That's the driver. Okay. That's what the driver looks like. It's like a little speaker, but it's designed to attach to the back of any board you like. Pick something. And so he uses that, and it's not that expensive. I mean, you can even, I believe, since I learned about it, you could find them in Turkey. You know, I don't know what people are using it for, but anyways, so he then goes on to an analysis later on, arguing on where to put the the speaker driver for this board. Where are you going to put it? So that's the whole point. And it turns out that he uses the Chiladi page as an example of where, see, this is the driver. And what he's doing is he's dividing this whole thing up in such a way and trying to figure out where would be the optimum place to put it. So it turns out that he used a mathematical methodology and he found out to put it off to the side, and he put some little extra weights here. And when he put those extra weights in the different places, it did perform much better. Now, it turns out that it's not hard to make these things. You just have to have a little bit of metal and a little bit, the driver is the most expensive part here. And even this piece of steel here, or whatever that happens to be, it turns out it's really cheap to buy, even here in Turkey. Nonetheless, it turns out that, so I never built this, by the way, but anyways, it fascinated me. Now, brings me back to something that I want to talk about, the concept of resonance, okay? Now, especially in music, okay? So the whole idea is that the sound, as you can see from this thing, we go back here, you can
As I
see
continue to ramp up, different patterns form.
even the sound that comes off of this is not necessarily going to be a single pure frequency. It's going to be a combination frequency. Perhaps one frequency drive is more common, more, it has a larger amplitude, it has a greater influence on what you're hearing than the others. But that doesn't say that there isn't these other frequencies involved in what is resonating. Okay, in the same way that what is resonating, you know, in the bell was not just it wasn't a single tone; it was multiple tones together, combined, making what sounded like something pure but was not. Okay, all right. This is for this reason I like this definition. So the whole idea is this: resonance is where something responds in a way that makes a sound. It can repeat it over and over again, but is not necessarily of a single frequency. That's why frequency is not really mentioned here. Incidentally, frequency is not mentioned because it's not necessarily a resonance. Now, one more thing that's a pet peeve of mine, so that I'm going to, and again, of course, it's not notes. Let's go back to a guitar body. Okay. So guitar body. Right. Here we go. Images. Now, there are things called resonators. Let's write the word down so make sure that you know what the word is. Okay. Let's stop share. Share the what do you call it again? Let me share the whiteboard. And here's the word that I want you to know. Resonator. Okay. And the whole idea of a resonator is something that what happens is it will always, you enter a sound would go into it and it would either accept the sound or it could change the sound, but change it in a way so that it produces a sound that is of a particular frequency. In fact, something like this, guitar bodies. Let's take acoustic guitars, which is easier to see. Okay. Stop share, share the that again. Okay. Okay. Something like a violin, viola, even a block flute is more like a wave shaper. It shapes the wave through. There's a whole bunch of different notes, a whole bunch of different frequencies that are produced by the strings. The body, of course, takes the sound, it reacts, it may change the sound. In fact, it does change the sound. It adds to the sound that the string itself is making. The sound of what the string makes and what the body of the guitar and how it responds to the sound of the string come to you together, and you hear the timbre of that particular guitar. So the whole point of this is that these things are not really resonant. They're not resonators per se, but they do shape the character of the sound by their very shape, by the very materials from which they are made, and of course, how they even sit in the hands of the musician that uses it. Okay. So I'm going to leave that here. So there's an awful lot of material to process for the moment. Okay. And so what's going to happen is that I hope you, so before this lecture, you'll have taken your final quiz. There will be 1 to 2 questions from this lecture about elasticity, oscillations, harmonic motion, resonance, mechanical waves, and Chiladi plates. That will be on the final. So, and then you will have 2 to 3 more questions that will be taken randomly from the rest of the semester. Now, one more thing, and it's really important. So look deeply in so read my lips and all that sort of stuff. Now, I will not allow notes, cheat sheets to be used in the class, in the final. I have done so in the past. I have now canceled that. You will not be allowed any cheat sheets to be used in the final. So this is for you to, so you're on notice, okay? You'll have to come in. However, for the final, there is one thing you're allowed to cheat. You're allowed to bring a single Turkish English dictionary with you. You can bring a Turkish English dictionary with you, so that because I do not want to have you have an excuse to be held up for why I couldn't remember this particular word. However, before the final, the TA will check your dictionary to make sure that it's okay. By the way, Um, can you have a Farsi English or a Russian English? Yes, you may. But the Turkish, the TAs will check your, make sure that you've not written anything inside it. Okay. And you're allowed a single dictionary in. That is all. If you want, you do not have to bring a dictionary. That's fine. Okay. All right. So I'll leave it at that for today. Okay. And I wish you luck and we'll see you shortly. Okay. Bye bye, everyone.